Are we all crazy? Is President Obama right that all is well? We're fine. Everything's so good. Well, let's talk about it with our panel. It's Juliet Huddy, Good Day New York anchor, and Michael Malice, dear reader, author, and lovely beige cruise coat wearing.
Thank you.
Yes,
I just bought it.
You're a fashion dream come true. And sitting to his left, it's Joe DeVito. I almost said author, but you're really a comedian.
Not yet.
He's got a wonderful
Only
CV.
crank letters.
Oh, there's quite a lucrative market for that.
Really? Do tell.
Oh, I will, certainly. During the commercial break, but first we have to get to the news of the day, which is the president's delusion. So, Juliet, do you agree that the Supreme Court should not have taken up this challenge to the ACA in King versus Burwell?
Yeah. I actually think that the president does make a point that this never should have gotten to the Supreme Court because he never should have had a typo as giant as this typo was.
Is it a typo, though? I mean, I really think it was the intentional law.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, he claims it wasn't.
Well, I mean, he claims a lot of things. But that's just because he's facing failure.
You don't believe our president? Is that what you are saying?
No, I think that when our president gets defensive, that he says whatever it takes to make himself look and feel better, the country be damned.
It's very Keystone copy.
Yeah.
No, I think what's going on here is if you look back at what happened with the first independent mandate ruling, Justice Roberts admitted to being very careful to reading the newspapers and people's accounts. So I think this is Obama indirectly lobbying Justice Roberts and saying, look, if you strike this down, there's no plan B, so you better stick to the vote that you had last time.
All right, but here's what you could say about the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts is the reason that we've got Obamacare in the first place. Sure. He's the one that chose to uphold the mandate, and so now he's got a chance. This is his mulligan. He can go back and say, well, I'm going to be a strict constitutionalist.
But he was sworn in under stare decisis. That was one of the things he invoked, which is the idea that if something has been decided, it's better to leave it alone than to change it. So according to his philosophy, he's not going to do anything about this.
Oh, you're a smart guy on the panel.
Yeah.
I just got an earpiece. I'm a complete fraud. I don't even speak English.
So if the president hasn't given up, what should he give up?
He's not going to give up golf, that's for sure.
That's right.
I think it's interesting is that he's got no plan for ISIS, but for the Affordable Health Care Act, that had to be forced through so we could find out what was in it in the first place. So we didn't need a plan to get that passed. But for ISIS, it's like, well, we're going to take a wait and see approach for that. I think what he should have said is, we're going to rain hellfire and destruction on you, and we'll figure out the details later.
Yeah.
That was for ISIS, not for health care.
Oh, I was going to say.
He's done a good job with that.
He should be doing that with healthcare and then maybe employ the same strategy with ISIS. The problem with healthcare, Juliet, is Republicans also don't have an answer. It's not like, you know, if the healthcare law buckles because of the confusion over federal and state exchanges, the Republicans have, you know, some great planned savior for the healthcare industry.
Well, you're talking, and Congress in general. I mean, there are suggestions to just bring it back to Congress. Good luck with that.
He wants to take it back to Congress so they can fix what you and the president consider to be a typo, and Congress can be like, oh yeah, we've got 2 words for you. Hell no. Okay.
Nope.
An investigation by the TSA discovered 73 airport employees who were actually linked to terrorism somehow. They're still thriving and working in those aeroportos. The IG investigation is just the latest in a series that has called out the TSA for massive security breaches at some of the country's largest and busiest airports. Congress had a hearing on the matter today. That is such a huge relief. So one of the problems, Joe, is that the TSA says we don't have access to all the terror watch lists, so there's no way we can compare potential future employees with people who shouldn't be in the airport at all. Do you think the TSA should have access to all those names and information?
Yeah, absolutely. They said they were missing some of the codes. I'm not sure how well coded if you looked at someone's resume and oh, you list jihad as a special skill. Oh, you've got a reference from Aman al-Zawahiri on your
I removed that. It didn't go well in the interview.
Yes, there's a little bit of whiteout on that. So it really comes the TSA. It really is a question of, well, what's the least you could do? And the least you could do is make sure the people you're hiring don't have terror links. But it's like, oh, someone may have had a 1/5 ounce of shampoo.
Yeah.
You better go focus on that.
But you think that having the TSA in charge of airport security, federalizing this agency, shoving it under the huge umbrella that is the DHS, that's like having the Secret Service at Ford's Theater? Explain
Yeah,
that.
like the TSA is basically like we had 9/11, which is a huge tragedy, which I'm not making light of, just like Lincoln's assassination, a huge tragedy. And they're like, okay, now we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again, but that's not where the terrorists are. Basically, the metaphor is like, it's like the post office trying to make sure every piece of mail gets delivered. But when you have that one piece that really doesn't want to get delivered and has a mind of its own, is looking at the weak spots, they can really work their way around it. So now we're at a point where the TSA is just really harassing people and kind of sexually assaulting them for absolutely no purpose.
Yeah.
And they have a $7 billion budget to make sure that the American people maintain a state of constant terror.
All right, are you surprised by any of the stuff that we found in this leaked Inspector General's report and the congressional testimony?
No, I'm not, because we've been talking about this for years now. But also, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we did a report about how one of these undercover inspectors was going through the security line, somehow set off the security, the bells and whistles. They searched him, they let him go, they didn't find anything, and he walks away with a fake explosive strapped to his back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, if we want to change things, we need to follow, I mean, you know, maybe not to a T, but LL. I mean, that's the way to go. That's the pattern, that's the protocol.
Or
The skies will be safe.
Or privatized.
Yes, I mean the same way that people who run bars and they run hotels have to make sure that their venue is safe, even though they're surrounded by drunks and transients.
Yeah.
If you had the planes in charge of who's going to get on them, you're not going to have any suspicious people and any little hell brats screaming their ears off.
Okay,
in my
then
aisle.
the interesting thing that we found in those groups that went through with explosives and incendiary devices, they weren't red teams. They weren't these super terrorists that DHS had put out there. They were actually just accountants through the Inspector General who went through on their own. Well, not on their own, but it wasn't a group of rogue smarty pants.
Was it like a kick me sign where they just stuck a bomb on his
It proves
back?
that the pen is mightier than the sword once again.
Or that the TSA is least mighty of all when it comes to airport security. Coming up, we got more with the panel. Indeed, Clint Eastwood getting censored from a TV show because of a Caitlyn Jenner joke. I should say edited, not necessarily censored. And then Charlemagne the God. He's got a lot to say about the Triple Crown jockey who apparently loves the ladies. And I love Charlemagne. That conversation is coming up. More with the panel next. Stay here. Perhaps from my favorite Madonna album of all time. Where's the camera? Hi. The PC Thought Police have struck at the quintessentially manly forum, Spike TV's Guy Choice Awards. Yeah, Clint Eastwood introduced The Rock. And then he made a lighthearted topical joke comparing the pro wrestler turned actor to others who have followed the same path, he said, like Jim Brown and Caitlyn somebody. The crowd groaned, the network caved, and the line was cut from the broadcast. My panel is back to talk about it. Juliet Huddy, Michael Malice, and Jude Vito. So before we talk about whether or not we're overly sensitive, you actually think that they were right to cut the comment. Explain, Michael Malice.
Yeah, and I've had as someone who makes jokes about 9/11, the Holocaust, slavery, rape, and killing kids, I think it's absolutely appropriate to cut this joke because there's a time and a place.
Okay.
Just last week, Ted Cruz was making jokes about Joe Biden, and then he had a reporter ask him, like, hey, his son just died. Maybe you could have a 1-week moratorium. And the thing about Caitlyn Jenner is there's many young transgender people watching her and watching the reaction, and if she's going to be pilloried and mocked by the culture, they're going to be much more scared to be regarded as someone who can feel safe coming out and identifying as their gender that they regard themselves as.
No, and I understand that, and I think,
And when is Clint Eastwood funny?
Well, he certainly wasn't funny at the Republican convention in 2012 with the chair.
Chair jokes. Am I
That was-
right?
But I think what he was saying, it wasn't so much about Caitlyn Jenner as he said Caitlyn somebody as though no one knew. But the joke was, her name is so ubiquitous, everyone knows who it is. Who can crack jokes about Caitlyn Jenner?
Well, there's only one person, and that man's name is Guido Kretschmer.
I don't know who that is, Joe.
Guido Kretschmer, the 1976 Olympic decathlon silver medalist.
So Jenner.
I imagine 40 years he's been thinking, how am I going to come to terms with this? And then he woke up about a week ago saying, I can finally admit the better man won. And then he looks at the headlines and he's like, oh, what the hell? West Germany doesn't even exist anymore, and now this.
Right, girl.
So, Julian, do you think we've become too sensitive?
Yes, and first of all, Spike TV, they're supposed to be provocative. They're the bastion of provocative. And why was that joke offensive though? I'm still not clear about that. He's in the news. He himself talks about it. He jokes around about himself. She rather. I don't understand what the problem is.
Do you
though.
honestly think Clint Eastwood is coming from a place of compassion and understanding as opposed to a place from bullying?
I think
and being
he's a lovely
condescending?
man. Yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I completely disagree.
Okay, I think that he's not. I honestly don't think that he's being a bully. I do think he's being a little bit condescending. And you know, the
piling on.
acceptance of Caitlyn Jenner is quite generational. I disagree about the piling on. I think the reaction to Caitlyn Jenner's coming out as a woman on the Vanity Fair cover has been quite positive.
I think,
and I think hearteningly.
We have different Twitter followers then, because I've been hearing a lot of vitriol and animus, and it's kind of been sad, I think.
Oh, that's
Well, look
too
at
bad.
the jokes you make, though.
Yeah, but I waited 15 years after 9/11. Come on.
You're the best.
Thank you.
I hope you don't open with that joke.
No, it's a closer.
Closer with that. I think it's more the issue I have is that the joke is kind of lame. But if we're going to cut lame jokes out of award shows, they're all going to be wrapped up in about 14 minutes. So I don't know if we start with this one.
I mean, I tend to think that I don't think you should necessarily pull back. Like Comedy Central, when they cut out all those Paul Walker jokes, it doesn't desecrate his sacred memory.
And those were a big hit.
Well, they were in the room, possibly. I wasn't there, but I was a little disappointed that Comedy Central, at a roast, cut those things
But
out. And that speaks to Juliet's point. Like, this is Spike TV.
But they just had that big roast with Bieber, and the N-word was all over that roast, you know, like, I think it was like 30 times, so it was something crazy.
I think they were just reading Justin Bieber's tattoos. He's actually got it written all over his body.
So you can pass.
Yeah, that's right. That's how you know a person is hard.
Good luck with that.
Thug life.
All right, well, our panel is, they're going to stand by. They're going to sip some iced tea and talk about the good old days, and they're going to plan the good new days for you. A little later, we're going to talk about Pamela Geller's latest provocative idea, putting up Muhammad billboards. Finally, is she going too far? Plus, Charlemagne the God, he's here to talk about Apple's latest venture, and of course, Triple Crown jockey's impressive love life. Victor Espinoza, Slick Vic, on the move. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm very serious and important. Welcome back. Pamela Geller, who organized the Draw Muhammad contest turned shootout in Garland, Texas, is now rolling out hundreds of billboards to publicize the winning drawing. Is that a good idea? We'll talk about it with the panel because they are back. It's Juliet Huddy, Michael Malice, and Joe DeVito. So, Joe, you don't just say it's protecting free speech. You think that getting all these billboards, 100 of them in the St. Louis area, you think that's necessary? Explain.
Well, I think it's good that she pushes back, because otherwise, you can't. There's respecting someone's religion, but when we bow to pressure for threats of violence, you can't make someone else obey the tenets of your religion. That's nonsense. And if you look at what these radicals believe, it's not just the cartoons, it's any depiction of anything. Any images are considered like graven images. So if you don't support that, you're not just against free speech, you're against art. You're against paintings, photography, illustrations of anything like that.
Anything with representation.
Exactly. And people say that she's doing this for publicity. People really did come to kill her. She's really risking her life.
No, and I agree with that. But, Michael Malice, you say that there's a possible backlash by putting Muhammad up on the billboards.
Billboards are meant for celebrities and athletes. So think about all the kids who are going to look at these billboards and be like, I don't know who this guy is, but he must be pretty cool, and I want to dress like him and read his books. So it's not as simple as she's trying to make it out to be, because they're just
Didn't he write Dianetics?
Have you ever felt alone and uncomfortable?
Yes,
While
right
someone's
now.
holding a sword to your neck?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's holding a can of Sprite in one of those, so I think that's maybe a mixed message.
Yeah, and he's also telling you to get lap band surgery. Really strange. Now, Juliet, I have to ask you this question, because she knows what kind of hot water she's in before. She knows that she's a target on some level, and I want you to think about this seriously. Does she have a death wish?
She does, clearly. I mean, I have to say, she essentially has a bounty on her head. I mean, if she's walking around publicly, I mean, God knows what's going to happen to her. She's kind of a tough broad.
Big time.
But you know, I like the agenda essentially that they're, this group is saying that she represents. You know, she's saying that we don't we don't want to bow down. These are people who, whether or not we do anything, whether we don't do anything, these are people who have an agenda. The agenda is murder, whether or not we act or not.
Yes.
So, I mean, the fact is, though, that there are Muslims, obviously, who are not terrorists, who find this offensive. And it is provocative, but you know, that's the way you get attention to your cause.
All right. Well, in other news, a Bloomberg report is making the rounds. It says that we are ending our work emails the wrong way. How dare you? Many of us probably didn't even realize we were doing anything wrong or offensive, but the report cites several common sign-offs on your emails that are no bueno. For example, when you just use the word best, it comes across as insincere, like best at what? What they recommend? Thanks. They say that short and sweet. Or try something creative, like the former Yahoo employee who used "the bird is equal to or greater than the word," a reference to a viral clip from The Family Guy. All right, so Michael, I don't mind best. Like if I don't know someone, I will often sign off best, or I use XOXOXO, it has to be 3, or love with an exclamation point.
Well, after I read this article, it turns out both me and your producer use best, so I'm going to change to more truthful sign-offs like, I hope you live to outlive your enemies, or if the NSA is reading this, I hope your sleepless cell activates successfully, or I only tolerate you because it serves my interests, comma, Kennedy.
You can start signing off as me. Wonderful. Now, Julia, you have been burned by bad sign-offs in the past.
Just recently, somebody said a boy, well, he was a man. He was over the age of 16.
He was 17 and a half.
Well, I mean, that was a little old for me, but no, this guy signed a little
grass on the field.
Text message to me. Kennedy.
What?
And it said best at the end of it, and I thought, this guy, he doesn't like me. I mean, it's so cold, it's so informal, so I just say, what? Just eliminate it, just end it. When you're done with whatever you're saying, just be over with it. And
so
go.
you spent all day
Peace out.
overanalyzing, like, oh my God,
The entire day. I
what does
did.
best mean? Like, does he not like me?
I totally
call me
reread
again?
it. It's just miscommunication.
What did I do wrong?
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so
I've been
you
divorced
sign off
3 times.
yours truly, but that's so
I do not sign
50s.
mine yours
Yours truly, Joe DeVito.
Yes, I have my quill pen next to my tablet. I use a very traditional sign-off by reminding people at the end of every email that my debut album, First Day with Joe DeVito, is available from iTunes and Amazon, which is actually the way I sign off. I would never say best, because who am I responding to these emails? I would say something more like, you can do better. I expected more from you.
But that's objectively false. I can't do better.
That's right.
As good as it gets.
Maybe we should all
reply.
sign off using that great soccer chant. Be aggressive, be aggressive. Speaking of soccer, Monday the U.S. soccer team won its first game in the Women's World Cup. USA, USA. But they couldn't do it without their star goalkeeper, Hope Solo, the very finest goalkeeper in all of the world. However, while she was the game hero on the field, off field, she has generated trouble and quite a few headlines, including a massive ESPN report on the eve of the tournament that shed a lot more light on her arrest last year on domestic violence charges, saying that the drunk Solo was so combative she had to be restrained as she threatened to fight one of the arresting officers. And that's just in a string of scandalous headlines so far for Solo. I have to ask you, because a lot of people have been outraged by the domestic violence headlines in regards to the NFL. Is there a double standard with female athletes?
Absolutely. And she's got a history of violence and bad drunken behavior and all that. And not only that, she's also a goalie, so when she's committing the act, she can use her hands. Unlike the other soccer players, just have to sort of kick you around the ankles and so forth.
Yeah, the arresting officers could only sort of kick her to the ground. But,
Yeah, you just put a little, you wear a leg warmer, you're good for the most part. But she is a big, strong woman.
Yeah.
And it is a double standard, because although the kid she hit is 6'8", 280
almost 300 pounds.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was a pretty big brawl, but she's got a bad history with this, and I think it's certainly poor representation for a United States team.
And what happened, Julia, was she sort of pushed her family over the edge. Her half-sister and her nephew were the other ones involved in this domestic violence dispute.
Yeah.
They saw Hope on Good Morning America, and she's like, I am so good and virtuous, and my family members are awful. And they're like, oh, hell no.
She's got the PR machine spinning, and she's done a very good job of making herself look like a little angel, but she is a poster girl for Mean Girls.
Yeah.
She's a train wreck. She's out there. I mean, clearly the girl just needs to settle down, go quietly. You're shaking
Do you
your
think
head.
she should be kept out of
I'm
the
not
World
going
Cup?
to sit here and have Mean Girls denigrated. Not happening.
I'm sorry, but I mean, she's this hot chick, and she's rich and famous, and she's
Problem?
pushing us around.
Well, she does seem to have a little bit of problem with the sauce and the...
She has a problem. Look, one of my favorite reviews said Michael Malice has endless energy for finding fault in others. She's going to go after these cops and say, you're a 14-year-old boy. That's the best insult you come up with. I was a 14-year-old boy, and I was awesome. So if she wants lessons in how to put people down in vicious ways, she can call me or tweet at me.
Yeah, I understand. She's an incredible athlete. She's very strong. I hope the U.S. goes all the way. They lost in 2011 to Japan in penalty kicks, and I really hope that they avenge that loss, and I hope that Hope Solo is a part of it. But when it comes to the sauce and the violence, this is a woman that clearly shouldn't be drinking and maybe needs a little bit of therapy.
Last thing
Some of the
FIFA
head shrinker.
needs to focus on at this point.
They really do. They need to take bribes to get Hope Solo into rehab. And we have panel, thank you. I'm kidding. It was a joke.
Too soon?
Wow. Wow.
We might be. Joe, Michael, and Juliet, you guys are amazing. Dream come true. Coming up, a new tell-all book finds the real-life stories from America's nurses. Take a cue from Grey's Anatomy and Nurse Jackie. Sex, drugs, and Obamacare. Wow, that's a cocktail. That is next.